Well, hey, if you don't know me, I'm Kade, creator of Collaborate Worship, and today I'm joined by Ryland Russell. I'm looking forward to our conversation on how worship leaders can help sound techs win in their position, so let's jump right in. Ryland, first off, I want you to introduce yourself and tell us about your YouTube channel.
Well, my name's Ryland Russell. I'm a full-time worship and media arts pastor here, actually in the same town as Kade. And here we are doing this together. So it's pretty cool. I've been here at this church for 12 years now, but I can feel for all my tech guys out there because before I was here, I was a full-time media director. And so I spent a lot of time behind the soundboard. But yeah, I do have a YouTube channel where basically I started this channel about a year ago just to document my journey as a worship pastor. I realized I've been doing this a long time and didn't really have that much documentation. And I just want to share like the stuff I'm learning with all the other guys who are in the trenches with me, you know, doing the same thing week in and week out.
That's cool, man. I love what you're doing with your YouTube channel. I know you're just about a year into it, but man, I can see great things ahead. It's really cool what you're doing. So let's get into the conversation. The relationship between worship leaders and sound techs is often pretty distant, right? And it's even known to be pretty tense at times where they may be butting heads a little bit. So what do you think causes all that tension?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I think it's mainly because like sound guys and tech guys, they're just kind of weird. and worship leaders are like these egotistical divas. And so they're just they're different breeds of cats, right? So, I mean, let's face it, most of our small churches, the sound guys are back at the sound booth because they don't want to be around people. they don't want to talk to people. They have this comfort zone. And so I know I'm painting with a broad brush there, but I think there is something to that we are a little bit different. And it all comes down to communication, right? And the key for I think most teams to have that effective communication is to like break down that barrier between the soundboard area, the tech booth, and the stage, and to see that sound guy like as our best band member, because without him, we are lost. That he is an essential part of the team. That he's not just the guy pushing faders up and down, but that he's essential to like the band. So there's different ways to try and go about doing that, but I think that's some of it is just weird communication stuff that we just always have to work on and be thoughtful about.
That's very solid because you're right. Like it's like the extrovert versus the introvert, right? They're just button heads and not seeing eye to eye on a lot of things. And those open lines of communication, man, that's going to help a lot, which we're going to get into some details of that. But before we keep going, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this video so far, just let us know with a like, because really that helps us get this video out to everybody else who could find it helpful as well. So go ahead and smash that like button for us. All right, let's talk about how worship leaders and sound techs can work together as a team instead of working in their silos. And really, this is just like Jesus taught us, right? It all boils down to serving one another. So what are some things worship leaders can do to help or to serve their sound techs?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so important for worship leaders to think about how can we set people up for a win, especially our sound guys. It's such an important position that so often we just let any Joe Bob that volunteers hop back there because we need that spot filled. And how can we help those guys and gals that are doing it win, like give them an easy win? So I was just thinking of some ways that I've tried to do that over the years. We have a team of volunteers here at my church, about 4 or 5 different guys that rotate. And they've all come in with different skill sets, different abilities, different experience levels. And so I've tried to establish some things to help us all have a constant win on Sunday mornings. So the first thing that I try to do especially with a new person in that onboarding process is just walking them through like a virtual sound check. And I'm sure if you guys follow Collaborate Worship, you know all about how to do that on your X32 or your digital soundboard. But I love to bring those guys in when nobody else is in the room and just play back a Sunday service. And usually what I'll do is I'll talk through kind of the different things on the soundboard if they're really new. And then I'll talk about just the mentality of building the mix in our room with our instrumentation. And then I'll say, okay, we're gonna play another song, and now we're gonna zero out the board, and I just want you to take the reins, and I'm gonna walk around the room, and then we'll walk around with an iPad just to kind of give them an idea of what it might really sound like on a Sunday morning. So that's kind of the first thing that I'll do with a newbie. And the second thing that I like to do, especially the first month or two that somebody's kind of coming onto our team, is are you familiar with the iPad or the iPhone app Audio Tools? You ever use that?
No, I've not used that.
So I think it costs like $20, but it's been really handy because it actually will do like an SPL graphing of your service. And so what's been good about that is twofold. You can actually make it like a stoplight kind of thing, like a red, green, yellow. And so it's sitting there next to the guys, because a lot of times they've been sitting out in the audience, or maybe they don't really know what it's supposed to sound like level wise. And that can give them just like a range of, oh, I might be getting a little hot. And but then what's been most helpful for me as a worship pastor, because the hardest thing is like, I don't know what it sounds like on a Sunday morning. I have in-ears in. I'm at their mercy. I hope it sounds good. But that app will actually record a graph of like how loud it was with SPL. And what I've been able to do is see the variations in my different mixers. I have one guy that he has a tendency to mix a lot softer. And so I've had to coach him a little bit to not be afraid. And so that's a cool app that you can check out. I think if you search Audio Tools, that's helped us for sure. And another thing that I just has helped us a ton, when we redid our sound system, the first thing that I did was we got to have a budget just to bring in somebody that knows what they're doing, a pro to come in and just get us to that baseline. Because my guys that run sound for me, and I think it's probably this way in a lot of smaller churches, they don't understand all the things in depth that you're teaching them, Kade. Like, I mean, your stuff is invaluable for guys like us that, well, how do I set a compressor? But they might still be a little bit afraid of like doing that initial setup. And so we have paid guys to come in every couple of years and just set all the gates, compressions on the drums, and dial things in so that way they're not having to overcome that. And so that just helps them already have like this good base for the mix. So I highly encourage that. I think we paid like a couple $100, so it's not a huge investment. You want me to keep going, or you got something else?
Well, I was going to say, I love what you got so far. You got the virtual sound checks first. You got that audio tool, which I'm going to have to check out, by the way. I don't have that app, and I could see that being very valuable because, we try to keep that consistent listening experience at our church, like loudness level, where it's not real loud one Sunday and soft the next Sunday. And how awesome to have a tool that you can be like, well, let's take a look at what actually happened. So going to have to check that out. And having the pros come in to do the detail work for you, that can take a lot of pressure off the guys too, because then they don't feel like they have to be an expert in everything. Man, such solid stuff. But yeah, keep going, man.
Something else I like to do with my guys, I try to remember as the worship pastor that they have their 9-to-5s, and they're probably not listening to the worship music that all of me and the band are prepping and listening to. So I try to make it as easy as possible for them to understand what we're going for. So with my non-musician guys, I actually make a YouTube playlist of the songs and send those to them each week. And so that way they can just be listening and watching these songs. And I always tell them, we're not trying to replicate the exact thing that's happening, because our band is unique and it's different. But if you get close to that, it's not going to be bad. So it's a good baseline to try and shoot for. And, that helps them understand kind of the vibe of the song. A lot of times, guys, if you don't do that, they're just coming in blind. They may have never heard a song before, and then it had some synth arpeggiator part that was the hook of the song that was buried in the mix because they didn't know. And so that combined with the way that we do our planning center plans and the sheet, the call sheet, hopefully helps them. Because our sound guys actually don't come to our midweek rehearsal. I don't make them do that. They just come to our Sunday morning rehearsal. But on our planning center plans, I'm designating on there, Mel is leading this song, Ryland's leading the bridge on this color microphone, and even stuff like this is a piano-led song, this is a guitar-led song. just trying to take the guesswork out of the game for them, because the easier we can make it on our volunteers to succeed, the longer they're going to stay in the game, I think. And that's true of any position in the church, I think. So that, and then I've got one other thing. Do you do stuff like that at y'all's church, though, as far as planning center plans and all that?
Yeah, I think it's all just hosted in Planning Center. I don't know that we create a separate YouTube list or anything like that. But yeah, all the resources, including the YouTube video, are loaded in Planning Center. And we just make sure that our sound guys have access to that and know to look at it and actually listen to those songs before they show up Sunday, because it is very helpful as a sound guy to know what you're listening for.
Yeah, in Planning Center, it's nice that you can see if people have accessed the attachments or not and how many times they've clicked on it and stuff. I quickly realized my sound guys just weren't doing it. So it's like, I guess I'm going to have to baby a couple of them a little bit. So if I want it to succeed. The last kind of thought I have on this as the worship pastor is just being a filter for your sound guy, like as far as filtering complaints and making sure that they know that they are not going to get the brunt of people's thoughts and opinions. And even as far as like at our church, if a note isn't signed, it doesn't go anywhere. It goes right in the trash. People that might go up and try to talk to our sound guy in rehearsal, they know that they're going to point people to me. That we share the same vision. They're doing what Ryland is asking them to do. So, and honestly, I serve at a great church. I've probably gotten 2 complaints in the last 10 years. So, and maybe that's a credit to the sound guys.
That's awesome, man. Something I always say about complaints is wait until you hear it from 3 different people before you even take action on it. Because I've been a part of an organization. It wasn't a church, it's a different organization. And I served on the board there. And they had all these policies in place. And it was so overwhelming. It's like, well, where did these policies come from? They're like, well, so-and-so said something negative about it, years ago or whatever. And I'm like, one person said they didn't like it, and we developed a policy like that we all have to abide by now. So it's just like, man, wait for that complaint to come from 3 different people. And then, it's a legit complaint. It's just not somebody being fussy that day, right?
Yeah, churches can be really reactionary, I think, sometimes. But, having trusted people is always a good thing. But yeah, I like that. 3 times, that makes sense to me. I like that.
Awesome, man. Well, one easy way worship leaders can help sound techs is also just to get them access to the training that they need to succeed in their position. And one of the training resources that we provide at Collaborate Worship is called Church Sound Made Simple. And this stress-free online training helps them do exactly what they want to do. They want to create a great mix every time. I can promise you, every sound guy that's behind that mixer, that's what they want to do. And some of them just, they just might need the resources to get there. But you can learn more about Church Sound Made Simple at churchsoundmadesimple.com. But let's continue this conversation, but I want to flip it around now. Like, what are some things that sound techs can do to help their worship leaders?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a great question. And this goes hand in hand with kind of some of the stuff we've been talking about. But I think the number one thing you can do is just know the music. If you're the sound guy, you have to know the music. You have to look at the songs like a musician would, because you are the conductor of everything almost as far as the audio goes. So, we can be sending out great things, but if you're not pushing it through in the right way, then it can all be for nothing. So learn the music, know the music, and also just know the vision of your worship pastor. Understand what the worship culture, you're trying to go for at your church, and understand their vision. I think that can go so far. The other thing I would really encourage guys to do that are serving in the tech roles is really participate in the worship team. Don't always just hide behind out in the media booth. Our guys, we try to always come together after rehearsals, everybody that's serving in any part of our worship and tech ministry, to gather for prayer and for discipleship. And so we all know that it's not just like they're doing their thing and we are on stage doing our thing. We're all in this together. And the last thing I think that is just so important that can help me as a worship pastor is for the sound guys and tech guys just to handle the small things. So I don't always have to be worried about it, as far as did all the batteries get changed in the microphones? Did that recording get started? I'm sure like in days of leading worship, you may be starting a song and you're thinking, oh my gosh, did they remember to start the stream or something? Like your mind's going a million places. And just having guys that are so detail oriented and can just take care of the small things, it just eases a burden, I think, for your worship pastor to know, like, they got it. It's handled.
Yeah, and I think one of the best ways to do that is to have a checklist, right? Whenever you miss something, because we all miss things, we all forget things. It's like, that needs to go on a checklist. That way I don't forget it ever again. So we have a checklist for our tech booth back there. It's like start recording, start live stream, and all these things that have to happen every Sunday. So that first of all, the guys who are there all the time don't miss those things. And secondly, if anybody else has to jump in because they got sick or like whatever happened, like we know what to do and we're not missing the recording or whatever. And I love checklists. I guess that's just part of my personality. Not everybody loves them, but I love knowing that I'm not going to let anybody down and I'm not going to forget anything because I checked it off the list. And people look at, just the way I handle things. They're like, man, Kade's just really good at keeping up with stuff. It's like, no, Kade just has tools for keeping up with stuff. Anytime somebody asks me to do something, I write it down. And let me tell you, I get a lot of requests on Sunday. I'm a lead pastor at our church now. And so I just have church members coming up one after the other, asking me to do something or whatever. And if I didn't write it down, I'd forget it because my mind is like not on those things per se in the moment, but like on delivering the message 30 minutes later or whenever that's coming up. So it's like, if I don't write that stuff down, I'll never remember it. It's almost like Sunday's a blur, right? And it's the same thing for worship leaders. You got your mind set on one thing. So you better write it down if you want to remember it. Do you guys have a checklist or anything at your sound booth?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've got a full walkthrough of the procedures of a Sunday morning if I was to be gone or if our intern was to be gone, very detailed. But then yes, on our back wall, we actually have an old school cork board that has push pins next to each item that they physically have to move from check to, I did it to I didn't do it. And so that way, it's just so many little things you have to take care of every Sunday that can slip through the cracks if you don't have something like that. So if you don't have a checklist, like definitely anything simple, just make sure you check it off because it helps so much.
That's cool, man. And, one other thing that came to mind whenever you were talking about like the sound tech needs to know the worship leader's vision. It took me back, man, to when I was in Bible school and I had a class called Submission and Authority. Doesn't that sound great? And it pretty much rocked my world because they were basically teaching us that you can't really be effective in a place of authority until you've learned how to submit. And then they taught us what submission really is. Submitting is doing what your leader asks you to do, even though you may not agree with it, but you do it without an attitude. Like that's the key thing, right? Without an attitude. And so, I mean, it doesn't sound very fun, but whenever you actually adopt that mindset, it's so freeing because you realize that your worship leader or your pastor is the one with the vision for that church. And so you're there to submit to that vision. So for a sound tech is there to submit to the vision of the worship leader. The worship leader sets the tone for like, here's what I want it to sound like. Here's how loud I want it to be in the room and just sets those things up because they are the ones in charge of the vision. And then the sound guy or the sound girl, they're just responsible for carrying out that vision. Man, that takes a lot of the weight off of your position because you don't have to make those decisions about how loud it is or what it's going to sound like or things like that. You just get to know the worship leader's vision and you execute the vision. You submit to that vision. Like I said, it sounds like a bad deal, but it's actually very freeing.
Yeah, that's a good word, man. I totally agree with that. And just getting to know like our tech and sound guys and breaking down that barrier and, having lunch with each other. That way it's not just like this, I'm talking to you over the talkback mic is the only relationship you have is how you hear them in your in-ears. Like that's not a healthy way to do ministry together. So, get to know your guys and then share that vision. And it goes a long ways.
Yeah, man, that's good stuff. Well, Ryland, thanks so much for being with us today. What's the best way for people to stay connected with you?
Well, yeah, you can hop over to my YouTube channel if you want to, and I'm usually doing 3 different types of videos this year: live stream reviews, just sharing tech stuff. I'm also doing Sunday vlogs if you want to follow along with our antics here at CBC Owasso, and then just helpful tech, stuff I'm learning along the way is kind of what my YouTube channel is made up of. I've got all the regular socials. It's just Ryland Russell. You can hit me up on there if you want to. Love to connect with all the new guys that, we're all just doing this thing together. And that's the coolest part. Just encourage one another. So
awesome, man. Well, thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and be sure to subscribe so we can notify you when future videos come out just like this one. Don't forget to check out churchsoundmadesimple.com and we'll see you next time.